Today's episode is with my new friend, Billy Flanigan. He and I were able to both be at the Saint convention a month ago or so. And I met him, and instantly his energy was so contagious for me. And the more I learned about him, the more I wanted to know about him. I loved spending that time with him and watching him on stage. He truly is magic at what he does. So Billy is a graduate from the Boston Conservatory of Music, where he received a BFA in musical theater. After graduation, he was hired by Walt Disney World. And I just have to also mention that Billy is the longest consecutive contracted performer at Disney, which is unbelievable. And I know I have some super Disney fans in my audience and listeners here on the podcast, and they're going to think I'm really cool that I'm having this conversation with you right now. So thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's so amazing. So Billy has seen in such shows as Tarzan Rocks, Broadway at the Top, the Hoop-Dee-Doo Review, and currently performs in the new Finding Nemo, the musical. His claim to fame at Disney was when he played Barbie's beau, Ken, in the magical world of Barbie. The big and small screens are no stranger to Billy, as he appeared in the feature film Dream Trap and television shows such as Superboy, Kenan and Kel, and HBO's From the Earth to the Moon. He also, we've got to mention, has his own what's it called?
Documentary.
I'm like, freeze. He also has his own documentary, Billy Flanigan, The Happiest Man on Earth, which I did share in my stories, and I hope you watched it. And if you haven't had a chance to watch it, I hope you'll watch it now. He is a father of four. He has three grandkids and two daughter-in-laws. And gosh, there's a lot there. We've been talking before we even started recording, and I asked, I'm like, Billy, do you sleep? Do you ever sleep, or do you just work all day and all night?
Yeah, it seems like I work all day, all night. I do try to get some sleep sometime, but I'm one of the ones that like will wake up and in the middle of the night and go, "Oh, please let it be time to get up." And it's like, "Oh,
wait,
I still have 2 more hours before I have to get up." Yeah, I mean, I love being awake. I love living. I always say, sleep when you're dead.
Yeah, okay, that's beautiful. And actually, I was listening to a Super Soul conversation. I can't even remember the lady's name, but Oprah asked her the question, what makes you what, fuels your fire? What lights you up? And she said, life. And I was like, oh, okay, that's so beautiful. And basically, you just said that same thing, like being alive and waking up and getting out of bed and getting moving. Like, you're excited about that.
Yeah, totally. And every day is a different adventure. So, I'm filled with faith, and I always do, this morning meditation, morning prayers, and I just say, take me where I need to go to make somebody else's day better. So that's kind of my mission. And I love meeting people. I love talking to people. And so, I love living.
That's so cool. How do you make your day better?
By making somebody else's day better. It's just this big circle of life, not to take a pun out of Disney's song, but it's so true, because you just pay it forward, pass it on. If you can make somebody else's day better, your day is going to be better.
Have you read the book it's called like The Bucket Filler? Or I think the book is actually called Have Identity Good in the World Today. But
No.
it's this concept of that we all carry around invisible buckets. And there are going to be people, so everyone has these buckets, and our goal, our desire should be to help fill other people's buckets. And the magic of this is, as we fill other people's buckets, our buckets magically fill too. And then there's people who think that they can go and take from other people's buckets, but that's the one rule, is that you can never, it's called a bucket dipper. And I started reading this book to my kids when they were little. And when they would get in an argument or a fight, that's how they would fight. She'd be like, she's big bucket dipper. And so it was a really funny term. But basically that's what you're saying, is that you figured out that the bucket filler analogy actually works. So as you uplift and help and love and serve in other people, then your bucket is also filled.
Yeah. I live by the motto, and I got this off of Dolly Parton.
Okay. Love
it.
In
the movie Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. She said this line, and I never forgot it. And she says, if you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. And it's so true. And you try, and there are some people who just are not going to. But if you
Mhm.
try hard enough, you can absolutely turn their frown upside down. Even in the grocery store, you can tell they're miserable at their job. And if
Yeah.
you just show interest in them and say, hey, how's your day going? Thank you
Yeah.
so much for doing what you do. This is, and I'll do whatever I can just to try to give them a smile.
Have you always been like this?
I think, well, after living with that motto, yes. And, working for Disney, it's kind of hard. You live with all that pixie dust. But my dad was really, I know the documentary for me is called The Happiest Man on Earth, but I think I got that from my dad because he truly
Oh,
was happy
love that.
about everything. He loved my mom so much, and she could be a cranky, what, and he would just look at her and go, "Isn't she beautiful?" And we'd be like,
You're like, she's not even nice.
"Normal." And
Oh.
he just, so he just showed that, and he just
Hmm.
loved life. So I think I got a lot of that from him.
Yeah, I see that in you so much. And the reason why I asked that question is if you've always been like that is because what I've made up is that maybe you always have been like this because it seems so just a part of who you are. But I guess the follow-up question was like, when did you get comfortable and confident enough to truly, intentionally make people happy?
Yeah, I think that was years into working for Disney because I was coming out of high school and college and all. I was bullied a lot in school,
Mm.
and because of what I wanted to do, and I
Well, and
wanted to
because
be an
of who you are,
entertainer.
because you are so full of joy and life and happiness, and teenagers who don't naturally feel like that, it could be really triggering for them to be in this space where someone who is happy and joyful and performative and all of those things.
Yeah, people just didn't understand me, and I was
Mm.
so unlike anyone else in my family. I was one of six kids. My brothers were great sportsmen, jocks. My sisters were captains of the cheerleading squad, queen of the proms. All three of them won that. I mean, just all of that. And I was the one that wanted to be the entertainer.
Hmm.
And I loved movies and I loved theater, and it just wasn't cool back then at all. I was one of maybe two or three boys that were in the chorus or the drama department. And I got a lot of flack for it, even from the faculty, because I tell a
Really?
story in the movie that one of the vice principal of our school was also the track coach, and he used
Mm.
to pull me out of gym class and make me run with him. And his goal was to turn me into my brothers if it was the last thing he did at the school, because he just couldn't imagine another Flanigan would come through and not be a sports star.
And he said
So,
that to you?
oh, yep. He Flanigan come up and then he'd say, we're going for a run. And while we're
Mm.
jogging, he's saying, I'm going to turn you into your brothers if it's the last thing I do. And to this day, I hate running because of that. I know
Hmm.
that, like I'll get on a treadmill and as soon as I start running, that pops into my head. So it just sunk in
Yeah.
from way back then and it hasn't gone away.
And you're also like,
So
what if I don't want to be my brothers?
yeah, and I
Yeah.
didn't at all. So it was horrible that ever even happened.
Hmm.
But I'm so proud of the growth that I have had from going from that bullied, skinny, you know, boy who was
Mm.
in dance and drama and all that to become so secure with who I am and what I love to do and just sharing my gifts and my talents with so many people.
Yeah.
My goal was when I left the Boston Conservatory, and I certainly was not the best performer. I was not the best entertainer. I was not the best singer, the best at all. But Disney saw something in me, and I thought I'd go there and stay for a year because my goal was to be on Broadway and do the whole Broadway
Hmm.
and TV and movies. And I ended up staying for Disney because of the opportunities that I had there, and they saw something in me that I didn't even know I had myself. And they put so much trust in me and ended up making me what they called a park swing. So I learned all the shows on property
Wow.
and I would sub all of them. So there was one day I only had 6 days off the entire year. And most of those days were doubles and triples that I would go from, starting off in the Melvin the Moose breakfast show and then heading over to the Diamond Horseshoe to do shows over there. In between shows, I'd run over and do a Kid of the Kingdom show. And then I'd go do the Hoop to Do and then get called to the top of the world. And so that was like my day. And I just loved it. I thrived on being the one that saved the day and saved the show. And there were people that would guests that would come and they'd be like, didn't we see you over in Fantasy Follies this
You
afternoon? And
just got
now
done.
you're
Yeah.
at Hoop-de-Doo, and what's going on here? So I just ended up staying for all these years because it was so much. I never had to wait a table. I never
Yeah.
had to do the in-between stuff when people are in between
Right.
shows and looking for work. And I just always had it.
Okay, we got to talk about this because you said I wasn't the best, but Disney saw something in me. So now, all these years later, looking back, what do you believe they saw in you?
They saw a talent that I didn't even realize I had.
Mm,
I was, even though I was very insecure because of being bullied and all, I
hmm.
think they saw somebody who was so secure on stage.
Okay. Yeah.
And I learned things very quickly. I had a very quick mind. So they trusted me to go into, this show, somebody got injured. I literally would learn an entire 35-minute show in 2 days and
Hmm.
be secure enough to go on stage and just do it. And it was it was a gift that I guess I had in me, but they saw, the casting director saw this and he's just like, well, I'm going to start teaching him everything because this kid's quick
Yeah.
and he shines when he's on stage, just because I love being on stage. That's just it's such an adrenaline rush for me. And I'll do the same show over. I've been doing Finding Nemo now. This is a second version of it. The post-COVID version is called
Yeah.
Finding Nemo, The Big Blue and Beyond. But before that, and for 17 years, and every time I go on stage, people are like, aren't you sick of doing the same thing over and over? And I'm like, I'm not, because there's always a different audience. And
Mm,
you look out and you see the faces, and sometimes at the end of the show when the moms and the dads are crying because it's so emotional about when Marlin finds Nemo again, and they have
mm,
this moment of Marlin finally lets him go be a kid instead of
yeah.
being that overprotective dad.
Yeah.
And it, it's it's I love an audience.
Yeah.
And I always say it's like I am my store. It's like a store owner. I am my store, and the applause are the people that come and buy my product.
Mm.
So that's
And no
to
store owner
me,
ever gets tired of people coming and buying their product, right?
right, right. I mean, that's what you live for. So
Right.
if people will come backstage sometimes and they'll say, "Oh, this audience is horrible," and I'm thinking, maybe it's not the audience. Maybe it's us. Maybe we're not giving 110%, 100%. So let's put that on us
Ooh,
because,
I love that. Like, what role are we playing in the lack of energy here?
right. It's like if they're not clapping or laughing, that might be us. Don't blame them. And sure, it might be a rainy day and they're cranky,
Right.
but it's our job to take that day and turn it into something better because now they're inside, they're covered, and okay, entertain me. Well, let's do it.
Yeah. We're
Let's
gonna,
give
yeah,
them that
rest your feet
energy.
and we're gonna make you laugh. We're gonna make you cry. We're gonna
Right.
raise your spirits. I love that so much. And the
Yeah.
reason why I asked the question about like what you think they saw in you is because I do think that it's really important, like as humans ourselves, but also like as parents, right? A lot of times I think the focus is so much on being the best. Like, oh, you got to be the best. And if you're not the best, then we have a problem. Or if you're not the best, then you're not going to get chosen. If you're not the best, you're not going to be selected, right? And so there's so much pressure around being the best. But
Yeah.
I love so much that you even brought this up because I'm super passionate about this because I think that heart, I think commitment, I think desire, I think passion is more powerful than the best will ever, ever be.
Yeah. 100%. I would never want to be the best because then I have
Mm.
nothing to strive for.
There you go.
So, that's my thing. And like, I'm serious. I am totally not the best at any of those
But
things.
what does the best even mean, right? Yeah. Like
Yeah.
we can argue what the best even means because everyone's looking for something different as being
Yeah.
their best, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll see even my grandson, he plays baseball and he
Yeah.
gives himself such a hard time when he strikes out because I think there's so much pressure on him to
Hmm.
be the best player. You got to get on all stars this year and you got to do,
Yeah.
and I didn't know sports at all, and all three of my boys don't know how. They all became jocks. They all,
This is
I
one of
gave
my
them,
favorite parts of of your documentary, talking about this with your kids. Yeah.
yes, I gave them microphones. They turned them into bats. I gave them, it was just like, I remember bringing them down to the playground when they were younger and kids were rehearsing baseball. And I just said, they said, what is
Rehearsing.
that? And I'm like, don't turn away, don't look, don't look.
Rehearsing baseball. The funniest thing that you do for me is use all of your terms in the sports, right? Like the costumes, the rehearsing, all of those things. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and my boys are so used to it. And I just
Yeah.
said, I have nothing to offer you if you go into this. I know nothing about it. I will do whatever I can. So when they played football, I coached the cheerleaders. I,
Perfect.
choreographed their routines for that. When they were playing baseball, I'd go and sing the national anthem at their games.
Mm.
It was just, I did what I could. I supported them, but
Hmm.
I never cared if they struck out or did whatever,
Hmm.
because I just wanted them to have fun. And they put so much pressure on themselves because of the coaches
Yeah,
put pressure on
totally.
you. And
Hmm.
my son's a coach right now. And I said, you're putting way too much pressure on that kid. Stop it. Just let him have fun. Dad, you don't get it. We have to be in the championship. I'm like,
You're like, do
why?
you? Do
I said,
you?
you know, all those trophies that are in my garage, are they in your house? They're in my garage. They don't mean anything. Come
You're like,
on.
actually I'm getting rid of them now. So if you'd like these trophies, you're gonna need to come pick
I
them up
did.
this week.
Rich, I totally did that. I laid them out. I took a picture of all of them. I
Perfect.
blew it up. I gave him a picture of all of them and I threw them away.
You
Because
know
it's
what?
like,
It's
now you have
true.
a picture of what they were, but they don't mean anything to you now. You don't know
Mhm.
that until years later. And I try to tell my grandson, I'm like, Parker, in 5 days, that strikeout is not going to matter.
No, but the
Trust
lessons
me.
that you learn in those moments, they carry with you. And I think that that's the important thing, is because it wouldn't have mattered if your kids were doing choir and performing. It wouldn't have mattered if they're playing baseball, but it's the focus on the lessons that we're learning in each step. When we're showing up, when we're committing to trying to learn something, when we're on a member on a team of any kind, right? Those lessons that if we put the focus on the lessons that we're learning, whether they're from good experiences or hard experiences, those are the things that we can carry with us and take with us forever.
Yeah. I took my daughter to New York once because she is a dancer. She's my only one that's
Love
an
it.
entertainer. And I took her to New York. There is a friend of mine who I used to work with at Disney. Her name's Angie Schworer. She is a Broadway gypsy. She has been there forever. She starred in The Prom on Broadway. The
Mm.
character Angie was written for her
Wow.
specifically. She's done a ton of stuff right now. She's in Some Like It Hot, but we had lunch with Angie and I said, any advice you can give to Lexi as she, you know, pursues this career as a dancer. And she said, be somebody that everyone wants to work with. Meaning don't complain, don't be cranky, don't be that snarky little person that just is, oh, I don't like this step, or oh, this is too hard. She said, just be somebody that everyone wants to work with. And
Do you
she
know I have
said,
that on the wall at my print shop?
are you kidding me?
No, I do. Yeah.
That phrase?
Yeah.
Shut up.
No, I do. I have that on the wall in my print shop, because I think that's the most valuable thing that you can do, is be the person that you want to be with too. Be the person you want to work with, be the person that everyone else wants to work with.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, what else is there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, she has never not worked, Angie.
Mm, yeah.
So I, have passed that on to Lexi now, and hopefully she's doing that. And I mean, she's been working, and
So
that's
cool.
a lesson. Yeah. So
Well, and I make up that you are that kind of a person that everyone wants to work with, because of the energy that you bring, the passion and the love, and like the true performer in you is fun and joyful. And obviously people probably are inspired by your ability to learn and to kind of pivot wherever you need to. And I think that that is so valuable, you know?
yeah. And one of my favorite things is to go out in front of an audience and have no script and just be. So I'm not sure if you saw my opening for Saint, and they very young group of ladies.
I'm
They're
trying to remember if
young.
I did. I was backstage because I was going on right after well, close after you had started. So I was
Right.
probably sweating and maybe I'll
Yeah.
have to remember. You tell me.
Well, basically they just let me go.
Yeah,
So I go
perfect.
out there with Kara, who's the owner,
Yes.
and they give me a board of what they would like me to wear. Now,
Oh, yes.
I'm an older gentleman here. This is a very young crowd. So the pictures she sent me are from young, beautiful, gorgeous models. And I'm like, not that at all. They're all
You
skinny
looked
suits with the
amazing.
short pants and the you could see the ankles. And I'm like, I'm gonna lose this
My
weight.
ankles are
That
showing. Yeah.
that's what I bought. Well, the pants were so like what they were supposed to be, but I couldn't bend over and tie my shoes.
So
So I'm
funny.
in the elevator and I had to ask one of the girls that were in. I'm like, could you tie my shoes? My shoes so tight I can't bend over. So I ended up just using that experience and then being at the gym in the morning and seeing these other guys who were these huge beefy men who were. So I just use these experiences and tell stories and the audience was laughing and loving the stories because they could relate to a lot of them too. And I'm like, I'm up here looking like Pee Wee Herman in this,
Yeah.
little suit right here, and you've got these beefy men that work for you that are so much younger. So why do you like me? It's like this
Well,
is
because
hilarious.
they're walking around in their heels and they're like, I'm going to wear these heels because I bought them and they look good, but these hurt. These are horrible, So
Yeah,
they're like, I get you. I get you.
yeah. I couldn't even walk up this. I had to
That I did
waddle
watch you walk
up
up the
the
stairs and
stairs.
that was quite comical. You're right.
Yeah, I had to waddle because those pants were so tight. I just went to a wedding the other day, and I'm doing a show. So in between a matinee and a night performance, I was officiating a wedding. So I wore that suit to the wedding. I couldn't get in my Jeep. I had to take the pants off, get in my Jeep, go there, get out in my underwear on the street, and put my pants on,
So
waddle
glad
up
you
to
didn't
the.
crash
Oh my gosh, it was
in your underwear.
exactly. It was like, oh, what we do.
What we do. But you know what? You probably entertained yourself in that moment, which is equally as important as all the crowds that you entertain.
I had half of downtown Orlando who walked by me while I was putting these tight pants on and then couldn't tie my shoes and had to ask a stranger on the street if they could tie my shoes.
That is amazing. I love
Yeah.
it. Well, Billy, so much of your life is full of this joy and this entertainment. And I want to talk about the documentary and I want to talk about a time where maybe it wasn't quite as enjoyable as it feels in your day-to-day workplace that you get to do. But first, let's start back with COVID. We were all so much in our own lives and experiencing our own like fears and losses and so many things. But when I watched your documentary and I was thinking about all the performers and all of the workers at this place that felt invincible, right? Like Disney feels completely invincible. It feels magical. It feels like, I mean, they've been around for so long that what could possibly go wrong, right? Like what could it truly felt like the possibility of something like all of you going home and the park not opening up felt like 0%, maybe
Right.
1%. I don't know. What did it feel like for you?
Oh, I thought, well, we'll be out for a couple of days. When
Mm.
they said they sent us all home, I'm like, well, it'll be the weekend. That's it.
Yeah.
And then the weekend turned into a week. I'm like, well, we'll be back in a week.
Yeah.
And then it just kept extending and extending. And it was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how
So
long did you end up being out of work from there?
6 months. Yeah. And let me tell you though, after 2 weeks, you start doing things and chores around the house that you thought, gosh, if I only had time to do that.
Right.
So for me, all of that was done. And I would exercise every day and all the gyms were closed. So I'd be biking to areas that had like chin-up bars and stuff like
Mhm.
that so that I could continue to at least keep my body moving.
Yeah.
My daughter's a type 1 diabetic. She was living with me at the time. And because diabetics and COVID
Oh,
were
yeah.
a dangerous combination, we were not letting anyone in the house. My ex-wife is a personal trainer, and we were still, because of the situation, we were talking, but it wasn't necessarily the most friendly of situations from her standpoint. And So we would let her in the house because she was living in her own place. And so she'd come in and she'd work us all out. And it was because of COVID that the two of us really reestablished an amazing relationship. So,
Yeah.
I have absolutely zero bad memories of that time for me, because that's when I started my biking journey. And I thought after 2 weeks, I said, I'm going to go start visiting people, because I was craving,
That human
interaction.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, I can't imagine if people, and just knowing and hearing and seeing what people were posting about, boy, how lonely I am, and how, yes, you can talk to people on Zoom, but that's your whole life. And so I was biking on the trail, and I stopped at one girl's house, and I said, she lives not that far. And I knocked on her door and backed up and just did a little song and dance. And she started laughing, but then she started crying her eyes out. And she was like, I haven't seen anybody in 2 weeks. This means so much to me. And we took a picture, and then she posted it on her Instagram. And then two other people would come, oh, that's so nice. I hope I get one of those. And it didn't right then have a name or anything. And then I went to those, I would follow who was commenting on her page and go to their houses, and then they would post something, and then it just started growing and growing. And
So
then one girl said, I want to.
You're literally going to brighten people's day. You're just
Yeah,
showing up, knocking on the door, backing up, and then you're singing them a song, a little dance, and
song
making
and
them
dance.
happy.
And I'd tell them, in the song, I would tell them how many miles it took me to get to their house. And it was always, and I biked 24 miles for one of your smiles. And then I'd sing their name. And so many people laughed. So many people just like literally broke down crying. I wish I could hug you. I wish I could. I'm like, well, that's not the point. I just wanted to let you know I was thinking about you, and I saw that you wanted one of these, so I came. And then one girl said, I want a flanagram. And I'm like, that's the name.
That's the
So then I had to
name.
change my song and add flanagram in there. So being Flanigan's my last name. And then I said, why didn't I think of that? She was brilliant. And she was actually one of the girls that was featured in the film. Her name's Jen Warren. So
You sing that, sing the flanagram.
So it's your Billy Flanagram, your Billy Flanagram. I'm here to say hello, hello. It's your Flanagram, your Billy Flanagram. Because I want you to know that I biked 25 miles for one of your smiles, Chelsea.
Oh, that's the best.
So I'd do that, and then they would just either laugh or cry. We'd take a picture, and then I'd go home and post who I saw during that day or how many miles I did, and they would do the same. So a campaign after I'd biked about 1,000 miles, because I was keeping track of how many miles once it became a thing. And a bunch of people got together. The first 3 girls that I went to visit got together, and they said, let's try and get him on Some Good News, because I think somebody from the office was doing something. So they did this whole campaign and started tagging him, and he's biked 1,000 miles altogether to bring smiles to people. And I never got on Some Good News, but by the time that came online, and my daughter said, Dad, go online and look at what these people are doing. And so I saw it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a thing. And then it became viral. And by that time, I'd already went 2,000 miles. And a friend of mine asked, she was looking for somebody to drive a car that got stranded in Florida. Her husband was entertaining here, and he drove here, but then he flew back right before they shut everything down so he could be with his wife. So I said, well, if we're not going back to work, if I can put my bike on the back of your car, I'll drive it back to you, and then I'll see about how I could fly my bike back or whatever. So I got on the road, and I drove from Florida to California, and then stopped in states along the way for people who had said, I'll never get a Flanagan because I live in Texas. So, when I show up at Paul Padilla's house in Texas, he's like freaking out. What are you doing?
Like, how did you get here?
Yeah. And I would never, I wouldn't just drive up to his house and take my bike off. I would always make sure that I biked a substantial amount of miles, so it was more impressive. I didn't want to say, and I biked a quarter of a mile. That doesn't mean anything. So, I'd park 10 miles away at least. and then bike to their house and then bike back to my. So I said, just don't post anything until I already do all my California people because I want to surprise people across the
Oh,
country.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I stopped in every state and then did all my friends. I used to work at Disneyland, so I did all my friends at Disneyland and all who had been following the journey on social media. And then when I came back to Florida and we were still down, I was like, I think I'm going to drive up and visit my family in Massachusetts, and I'll stop in all the states along the way there. So I put my bike on the back of my Jeep and I drove and stopped in every state and, biked miles there. And then when I came back after that trip, I'm like, I'm going to go visit my son in Chicago. So I got back in my car and drove to Chicago and stopped in all the Midwest states for people that I knew there. So all in all, during those 6 months, I biked 7,000 miles
Insane.
through 16 states. I drove through many more states, but stopped
Yeah.
in 16 states and then visited over 500 people and
Truly
did this.
incredible.
So it was great. And, during all of this on my journeys is when the producer, well, I had gotten a call from Good Morning America, from People Magazine, from the doctors, from Dr. Laura Show, all who had heard about this story, and they did feature stories on them. So that was really cool. And then the producer in Atlanta, that a guy that was a director who lived in California, knew somebody in Orlando, said, do you know this Billy Flanigan guy? Can you get us in touch with him? We want to see if there's ever been a documentary made about him, because we'd love to do something on this story, this feel-good story. So after meeting me and through Zoom and talking to me about my career at Disney, about certain life choices, being bullied, my whole coming out and all that, they said, would you mind if we do a feature documentary about your life? I said, no. I said, just let me ask my kids and Karen if
Yeah.
it's okay, because this is spilling a lot of
Part
personal
of their
stuff.
stories as well. Yeah.
Right. So they all said, yeah, we'll go for it. And the whole time I'm like, it's probably never going to happen. But then they really started getting into everything. We need a theme song. And they they subtitled the movie because I kept crying during every interview. That just brought back a lot of emotion. And I
Yeah.
was sobbing. And I said, how do you calling this the happiest man on earth? All I'm doing is crying. And they subtitled it, Behind Every Smile Are a Million Tears. And then
Oh,
they asked a friend of mine who knew me to write a song called Behind Every Smile Are a Million Tears. She wrote it overnight, and I got to sing it in the end of the film. That's the song I'm
yeah.
singing. And it just such an amazing song. So anytime I go to promote the film or all, I always sing that song as well, because it's just great. And she even put the line in there about, if you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. She put that in there as well. So it was just such never in my wildest dreams could I ever
Yeah.
imagine that somebody would think that was interesting enough to make a whole documentary about, or that I was interesting enough.
Which
But
is crazy. I mean, now, okay, so in the moment I can understand you're like, what do you mean? Like, I'm just this guy who's trying to survive the pandemic. I'm lonely, they're lonely. Like, I'm a performer. This performance is like it's the performing is being taken away from me. So how can I continue like feeling happy and joyful and myself, right? So I get
yeah,
that you just felt like a human, but looking back at it, I mean, come on, really? It seriously, the story is incredible. What you were able to do for others is absolutely incredible. And how cool that it goes all back to like your desire to bring joy, but that's how you feel joy.
yeah. And I think one of the things that it really helped, and I always say we're like chess pieces and God just moves us where we need to go. And that was one of my prayers every day, that I would say, just take me where I need to go to change somebody's day. And so it's like I'd be biking and I'd say, oh, I think I'll go. She lives over here. And then that girl would be sobbing, you have no idea how much this means to me. So it's like, wow, you came through. But I think what happened too is everything that I was on said Disney performer, bikes, Disney performer. So Disney at the time was getting some bad publicity because of them opening before people thought it was
Mm-hmm.
open. The entertainment hadn't come back yet, and then they were having the reservation system. but the Disney performer does this, was giving positive to the negative that was coming
Yeah.
in. So I think when it was time to bring shows back, they brought me back and taught me a show that I didn't know. And I think that a lot of it had to do with, listen, this guy's out there giving us a
A
good
really
name.
good name. Yeah.
Find something for him, because the show I left during COVID was Finding Nemo, which didn't come back for another 2 years
Wow.
after. So I was over at a different stage, and I had so much guilt because there were so many people who knew that show when COVID went down, and they brought me back and taught it to me. And so I was employed then for a year and a half, which was such a godsend as well, because my daughter's a
Yeah.
type 1 diabetic, and I needed the insurance to pay for her medication. And so it was so great that it was able to happen, but I did feel so much guilt. I mean, I remember coming home after rehearsals and just sobbing because I knew so many people were out of work, and hey, did anybody get a
And you
call
loved
today? And
those
I,
people. Yeah.
yes, and I just wanted the best for them. So when Nemo finally came back and they brought me back over there to learn that show, and then eventually I went back over there full time, it was so great that we were all back.
Yeah. What kind of growth do you think came during that experience of riding the bikes and seeing the people and bringing joy to their faces?
Gratitude that
Mm,
I could actually do something so small that would make such a huge difference. And I just learned too, there is no small deed.
yeah, I believe
There,
that.
anything can really change somebody's day. And to hear what people were posting or, saying, and people that just wanted one of them, and just like it was such a small thing. I just biked to your house and sang a little song, and it was my stage for 6 months, and to them it was huge, and it just turned their day around. So I thought, golly, there are no small deeds.
No, it's so true because, our human desire and our need is just to feel connected, to feel seen, to be loved, so it doesn't actually matter how we do it, but you just did it in the best
Right.
way that you knew how, which was
Right.
perfect.
And I kept moving all through COVID. People were like, I got my COVID 10. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I actually lost 10
You're
pounds
like, I got my
because
10 pack. You got your 10 pack, right? Riding your bike all across the country. Like
yeah,
this is one of my favorite stories I've ever heard. It's so powerful, so beautiful. I think that, in these moments that are can be really painful and can be really scary and really hard, the fact that you were able to not just think differently or like believe differently, but make decisions differently, to really bring joy and happiness and fulfillment to your life and to the lives around you. Like such a gift, such a beautiful example to all of us. So I'm grateful
perfect.
that they made the documentary about you so that people can kind of experience that. Cause I'm like, my regret is that I didn't know you, so I couldn't ask for one. Cause you bet I would have wanted you to come all the way to Utah and show up on my door and sing.
Well, it's not too late. So
I
what
feel like you just sang for me though here. So that's good.
I did. I
We're
did. I
close.
didn't
Yes.
bike to your house. It's not fair because I don't have my bike helmet on or my sunglasses. But here, another great thing that came out of it too is when I was in People magazine, I was wearing sunglasses called Tifosi.
Yeah.
Tifosi tracked me down through social media and asked if I would be an ambassador for them. And
No
they
way.
sent me sunglasses, and they just said,
Amazing. Of
you
course they
post a
did.
picture, tag us in the picture. So I have like a slew of free sunglasses that I got to pick out, and they would send me. It was so cool.
That's
And
amazing.
as I'm biking, I would listen to podcasts and things, and I would listen to the Dr. Laura show, who I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
And I was listening to her one day, and then somebody called and said, "Hi, this is so and so from Dr. Laura." I'm like, I thought it was my friend Andrea making fun of me because she knows how. I'm like, all right, Andrea, very funny. She's like, "Excuse me?" I'm like, "Is this Andrea? What?" She goes, "No, no, this is so and so." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I'm listening to Dr. Laura right now." She goes, "Yeah, she wants to interview
That's
you for
so
her show."
cool.
she heard about your story. I'm like, this is the most amazing thing ever. So when I went out to California, after the documentary was made, I went to do a job in San Diego for that hair company, and I brought my bike. I had not met the director in person of the film, and he lived in LA. So I said, I'm going to bring my bike, and then I'm going to go up to LA, give him a flanogram because I'd not met him yet. And when I did the interview with Dr. Laura, she said, well, if you ever come to the West Coast, I want a flanogram. So I contacted her people who called me. And I said, Dr. Laura said this. I'm not sure if she really meant it, but I'm going to be there and I would love to give her a flanogram. And they're like, oh, yeah, absolutely. We'll set this up. So
no way.
Her home address, I biked. She lived on the top of this huge
She
hill.
didn't tell you that part.
No. Oh my gosh. It was like biking 100 miles going up this hill. I was trying to weave myself so it wasn't just like, oh, it was just like that. But I got there. They brought me in while she was doing her program. I sat there, and then after she interviewed me, I gave her a flanogram and took a picture with her. And it was like, I was literally, as I'm talking to her, crying because I said, in 1992, the local paper did a story on me because I had just started working. I had been at Disney for 20 years? No, 10 years.
Don't ask me.
I forget. Yeah, maybe it was 2002. They did, because I had been at Disney for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And they said, if you could ever have lunch with somebody, who would it be? And I said, Dr. Laura Schlesinger.
Oh, stop.
And so that was 20 years ago. And here I am now, just crying like a baby.
That is so cool.
It was so cool because I really respect her. I love her show. You know, a lot of people hate her because she's so direct, but she gives great advice, and I've taken a lot of it, and I'm happy.
I love the phrase that the truth will set you free. It might make you angry at first, but it will set you free. And I think that anyone who is really direct and speaks straight to the point, it kind of hurts. It makes you a little angry. You're like, oh, you know, but then it's what truly sets us free. So that is the coolest story. And how cool that because you decided to do this, that it brought those opportunities. Because while the opportunities performing on stage at Disney were amazing and magical and wonderful, like they're not putting you in Dr. Laura's home, right? And so, but you also had to take the action. You had to make the moves and do the thing to get there. And also, I think something that's really important about this is you didn't set out with the intention of publicity. You didn't set out with the intention of getting in Dr. Laura's house. You didn't, you know what I mean? Like so many times we're so focused on those like big things that we would want to happen from it, or that would be really cool if it happened. But this was just like truly you, the goodness of you showing up and beautiful results that came from it.
And I don't really promote the movie as much as I probably should, because for me, I don't want people to think that I produced a movie about myself.
Okay, besides, you want to know? No, you don't need to worry about that. Okay. And I actually because I just released this podcast, a solo episode last week, and it was about humility. And I think that humility is truly being willing to show up fully as yourself and allowing people to experience you in your gifts and your talents, and letting them celebrate with you, and you celebrating the pieces of you that make you you. And so, of course, you didn't set out and try to make this documentary about yourself. Of course, I don't think anyone would ever think that. But humility was you saying, okay, yes, you can showcase this. You can talk about this. I'm going to share these pieces and parts of me and my life with everyone, and like just letting people enjoy it. Like that is beautiful. And you don't have to feel like there's zero judgment there. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's a true act of humility.
Yeah. Well, I probably wouldn't have brought it up at the same convention at all, but they did.
Well, so because it's good. It's a good show. You should watch it.
Well, in their year in review, and they said, oh, and then in October, Billy Flanigan, the Happiest Man. So as we're rehearsing, that came up. I'm like, you guys are putting that on there? They have the screen post. I'm like, yes, of course we are. You're part of our family. I'm like, and so of course I started crying. I'm like, oh, crazy. So,
Yes. No, it's amazing. And I think that one of my biggest takeaways watching this and hearing your story is that it'd be easy for people to see you and you're like work at Disney and so yes, life feels magical for you and you get to perform and all of that, but also your true character showed when you weren't on stage at Disney and you still created your own stage. You still wanted to bring joy and happiness and laughter into people's life. And so that is an example for anyone that you don't have to be in Disney, right? To create the magic. You don't have to be on a stage. Like you have the power, you have the ability to show up exactly who you are, wherever you are, and create exactly what you want.
yeah. Oh, I love the way you put things.
No,
That-
you're nice. Well, I see that in you, and that's one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast and have this conversation, because I think a lot of people wait and wait and wait and hope that there's a stage for them, or hope that there's this, job for them, or hope that there's this spouse for them, or hope that there's this experience just waiting, when we don't really have to wait, right? We can create what we want right now with what we have. And then as we do that, then those bigger opportunities, they come, and sometimes they come what we hope they would. And sometimes they're big surprises and better than we could ever imagine.
Right. And I love that your podcast is about growth too, because during this whole process, man, oh man, do I feel like I've grown so much in confidence
Yeah.
and being able to express how small deeds can really change somebody's life. And it doesn't really matter. You don't have to go out and build somebody a house to
Yeah.
say, to make it somebody's day. You can do something as simple as riding a bike and knocking on a door
Totally.
and singing a little song. And it's the growth that I've had and the growth that my ex-wife had too during this whole process too, seeing that I wasn't just this horrible, selfish human, that I was,
Yeah.
A good person. And I always
Just,
try to be.
I actually want you to say that again. If you're not watching on video, you're not watching on video, but there was a hesitation, and I want you just to say a good person.
Yeah, it is hard for me to do that too. But yes, I mean, I do feel like I am a good person.
Yes.
I I do strive to bring joy and happiness, and that's one of the things. Having been at Disney for so many years, I know that there are people that go there to, of course, live a magical dream and stuff. But sometimes there's just the person in the audience that you'll spot and you'll say, there's something going on with that person. And I'll tell you this story. We do what they call meet and greets, and they're usually for kids with Give Kids the World and things like
Yeah.
that. To me, are one of the most magical things that we
My
do.
nephew got to go to Disney World with Give Kids the World.
Right. So that's how I met Chloe, who was in the film with the program, and they brought her back to talk. And there was a little boy with glasses. That was just it. And he was just watching the show, and he had his mom there. And I'm like, there's something about him. So I said, can somebody go find that little boy in the audience and bring him back and let the cast meet him? And it was a joke that Billy always will find somebody that he has to go meet, whatever. So they brought him back. Well, he had just lost his dad. And the mom was sobbing at the end of the show there. And he just had this connection. Nemo was his favorite movie. So he was able to come back and meet the cast. And, this is a show about a child and his dad, and he had just lost his dad. And then he came back and the mom started crying. Now I'm going to cry.
Now I'm crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just that magical moment that, why did I spot that kid, And, but we made a difference for the mom that day, because it kind of took this happy movie that he loved so much and put it in his heart for the rest of his life. He got to meet the cast and take a picture with us, and that'll be a great memory for him forever.
Right. And I have this thing where I talk about the difference of just seeing the world or looking to see. And I think that's why you're able to find the people who need just a little bit more connection or a little bit of recognition or love or connection to whatever, is because as you're performing, you're not just performing because it's not only about you, right? But you're looking to see. And as you look to see, then those people who need you are shown to you. And I believe in that so much. And I love that story. And like the story of Chloe just touched my heart so much. And I think that like there's such beauty and power as humans when we are looking to see people, because we truly can make a difference in their life.
Yeah. I love to being a dream maker, because some people's dreams are just very small. There's a girl that I worked with who, she was a short girl, and she's like, oh, my dream was to dance in front of Cinderella Castle, but I'll never be there because I'm not tall enough to be a kid of the kingdom. And so I was hosting the Christmas parade, the filming of it. So basically it was me on a street for 8 hours while they were filming with a microphone, trying to get the crowds to stay where they were. And there were many times I'd have hours before the star came out to hold the crowd there, because they would get these people in to be the crowd, but then the people would kind of dwindle and wait until Miley Cyrus came out.
Yeah.
So I said to a friend of mine, I said, let's surprise Claire and we're going to make this happen. I said, you're going to tell her that she's assisting you in a choreography for a show over at a rehearsal hall in the Magic Kingdom. And then you're going to walk through the park. You're going to teach her a routine. You're going to walk through the park and say, oh, I think that's Billy's voice. Let's go. We planned this whole thing. So we did all that. It was during a downtime where I had time. And I said, oh, my friends Claire and Sterling are here. And I said, well, everybody, you're going to experience a magical moment in front of our cast members. I said, her dream was to dance in front of Cinderella Castle. She never thought she'd be able to make it. And we're going to make that dream come true today. I never asked permission for this. I never asked. It was just like I had the power of the microphone.
I love it.
So we went, I played When You Wish Upon a Star, and she and that guy got to do the choreography that he taught her. And she's thinking she's on her way to go teach this to another group, but it was really for her.
Stop.
And again, I'm going to cry because as she's doing this, how happy she was, and how supportive that crowd was to see this young performer have a dream come true that she never thought would ever happen. That she's there kind of sort of by herself with this one other guy, and the whole castle is there, and a crowd of thousands of people cheering for her. And when it was over, she started sobbing and wrote me the most beautiful card about, cross it off her bucket list. What a dream come true that was. And I love having the ability to do stuff like that.
What a beautiful story and gift. Billy's the happiest man on earth, and also the dream maker. You are the dream maker. You're making people's dreams come true. Like, don't we all wish? And maybe we don't get to do that all day, every day in our lives, but like we have the ability to do that. And I hope that is a message that everyone listening will take away, is how can you make everyone's day just a little bit brighter, a little bit happier? Small and simple acts never go unnoticed. And if you get a chance to make someone's dream come true, you take the power of the mic and do it, right?
Oh, you 100% never ask for permission. Always beg for forgiveness.
My mom taught me that one. Billy, you are just a gift to the world. You're a gift to me. I'm so grateful to have met you and know you and to be inspired by your story. And thank you for coming on and sharing it. I really hope the listeners will go and watch the documentary, follow you on Instagram, all of those things. We'll have the links in the show notes so that they can do that. But so one quote that is really important to me is like, fire in your heart, peace in your soul. And it's because I just truly believe that we should always have something that is lighting us on fire, that we are passionate about, that makes us get excited to get out of bed and to live, right? but also not at the expense of our peace. We want to protect that peace. And I believe that we can dance with both of those things. And so I love to end the episode with these two questions. So what is something currently that is lighting your heart on fire?
Currently, I am in a production of Something Rotten. It is a show, a musical comedy show that was on Broadway starring Christian Borle. And I am getting to play William Shakespeare in this. Now, the ad that went out for the audition notice was a 20s to 30s tenor rock singer. I am a 62-year-old baritone musical theater singer. I didn't audition. I was offered the role by the director. He said,
Wow.
I think you'd be perfect for this role. I'm like, I am nothing of what you listed on there. Because I think it's, and I thought, gosh, I haven't done a book show in 7 years. Am I ready for this? Am I too old? Am I going to be able to sing it? I'm going to have to alter some of the melodies. And I am having the absolute best time of my life. I mean, I didn't even know it was a dream role until I read the script and started singing the music, and I am just having the best time. So that right now, that's lighting my soul on fire right now, because I get to do 6 shows a week. I'm still working at 5 days a week, and I'm doing double duty. I'm not having a day off for 5 weeks because the show has 2 more weekends to run. But
I'm tired for you, but I also know you're very much alive.
Yeah, I'm loving that. So,
what is something that you do to protect the peace of your soul?
Ooh, I read a lot and I pray. So I get up every day and I have my time where I just, I'll meditate, pray. But I'm reading this book, and it's every day there's a new lesson in there, and they're just short little lessons of what you should take away from today. And every month has a different theme. So I'm learning a lot about myself. Like today's was about choices you make, how the choices of good are reasoned choices. The choices of evil are reasoned choices. They're the choices that you're going to make, which way you're going to go, the good or the evil. And just knowing that you have a choice to be happy. You have that choice to decide how your day is going to go. If something bad happens, if you don't get the part, if you trip and fall, it happened for a reason, and find the best reason that it happened. You're just going to grow from it. So I'm really just learning so much from that. And a lot of it, they go back to the Stoics from way back who have written certain things, and then they just elaborate on that. So I'm loving that. So that's kind of how I keep my peace, and that's how I start my day. So the rest of the day from there is just, just being happy and just saying, hey, whatever happens today is meant to be, and I'm going to either learn from it or I'm going to grow from it.
And we know you're going to make the best of it.
Yes. Yeah.
We know you're going to make the best of it. Billy, you're incredible. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I really appreciate being a part of this. So, and I love your podcast. So
thank you so much.